Hello guys. So I'm gonna continue the journey. After I left that open field, got a couple of quarts of gas. Roland gave me the $20 and he was heading up to the mountains to help out with Boy Scouts. As I continued my journey, I went to a gas station, I'm assuming south of Stockholm or Stockholm. I don't remember the name. And I remember charging my laptop outside of the gas station. Of course, it was probably the first time I saw an outlet in California. I know in Texas you can find them everywhere. But in California, they definitely don't have them out to share to anyone. Got me a couple of gallons of gas, and then I decided to pick up trash while I was charging my laptop outside. Of course, I didn't realize I was loitering at the time, or I wasn't trying to intentionally loiter, because I was just charging my laptop, and then once I'm done with that, I'm gonna just continue my journey. And while I was doing that, I remember a guy offered me some bananas and Gatorade. And a lady offered me $2. Of course, the cashier came outside and told me, hey, you can't sit there. You can charge your laptop, but you can't be sitting here. Of course, I didn't realize until it all clicked in my head. Again, I was just going through a detox, still in this fight and flight mode, not really thinking or being put things in consideration of what I was doing at the time. Till it made sense to me once I got to Washington State. Of course, I'll talk about that in another video. I remember continuing, yes. I remember after I left, I kind of remember, I think it's Yosemite. I can't remember if it's Yosemite Park or Yosemite State or City. That's where I took the exit. Decided to pick up more trash around the area. And then something came into my mind saying go to a Hindu temple. Follow my intuition, I would say, that feeling. And I so happened to found a temple called the Guru Temple. Of course, it's not like it is in, I guess in India. Apparently India, each temple has its own designated deity, regardless if you're a follower of Krishna, follower of Shiva, a Cedric. This one had multiple ones where you can just pick one that resonates with you and focus on. Of course, I have my own point of views on deities and Buddha and Jesus Christ, and I'll talk about that in another video if you guys are interested. It's just my point of view. When I walked into the temple, and when I was going to go out to pray or meditate outside, I noticed there was like water or dollar bills flung out everywhere, and they were all wet. Of course, I didn't even touch them or pick them up because I don't want people to get the wrong idea that I'm just trying to take money. So I found the people who were working there and asked them or let them know that there's money flung out everywhere. And then when we walked over there, they gathered up the money, and so, to my surprise, instead of them putting it back to the altar, they handed me that money. Like I said, my intuition didn't lie. There's a reason why we're going this direction. Like when you follow that flow, life brings you wonders. It may take a while, but you'll reach your destination. Just like how finally reached mine here in Los Angeles, at least for now. And I continued my journey forward, and then until I ran pretty much low on gas again. I was in Elk Grove, which was a part of Sacramento. And I continued picking up trash and collected feathers. In my journey, I consider feathers like a synchronistic thing in my life. I mean, honestly, it's birds that shed them, but when I see them, it's almost like the angels are there trying to communicate with me in some shape or form. I did some quick hygiene, of course. And later that, I remember I was going around neighborhoods trying to find a place to park, but there was like this, I guess, surveillance. And I don't want people, excuse me, think I'm trying to break into their house or trying to, bother anyone. I was just over there to try to find a place to rest my head. But something told me to go somewhere else. I went to a Sam's Club. I was getting really excited because I was thinking that this would be a spot for me to rest, only to have security guard to tell me I can't park here. But luckily she was polite enough to tell me where I can stay at. And then I finally found that spot in a plaza. Well, I said no parking technically. I parked somewhere where it didn't say that. But it was in the same area. And I finally had some rest. I remember I drew a tarot card before that night, and I remember it was the High Priestess. It's almost like saying trust your intuition. And it was right, it led me to this Hindu temple and gave me $8. I wasn't even asking for it. And, I'm really grateful for that. And then the next morning, I remember waking up early that morning, I had a dream about this bear in red armor. Of course, I don't know if you guys are familiar with League of Legends, but it kind of reminded me of that bear, Volibear, the thunder polar bear. And I remember I was getting confronted by this child saying, "You killed my parents." And I don't know why it made me realize that I was that person. And I remember crying in that dream. And when my tears were dropping, like new life was growing from it, It was almost like the tarot card death in some sense, Things finally came to an end, but now there's places, or I destroyed something for something else to grow in its place. Like, I want people to know that no matter what mistakes you made, it's exactly the way how it's meant. There's no such thing as perfection, and then something gets destroyed, you know what, that's okay, because there's always an open opportunity. Sometimes you gotta destroy something in order to create. I think there was this YouTuber, Kurt Johnson, was saying sometimes you have to pull down the crappy shack in order to build a castle, or something like that. And I remember drawing the Empress card, and it was saying, stability will come into my life. And that day it did, because thanks to the my disability, which is only get 10%, which is $180, or it was $174 at that time. It bumped up to $180. It was enough to get me gas and to finally pay my ticket, which was only $10, but still I think it's kind of crappy that I had to pay for something that I didn't even know about. And then kind of cross my fingers, hopefully they get my payment and everything else taken care of, which is they did. And then I went grocery shopping. Went to a grocery outlets, got some organic stuff. Then I continued my journey north. And I really wish I would have stayed longer in Northern California because it was very beautiful. Beautiful mountain ranges, you know, with the piney trees. I mean, I just felt like when I drove towards, let me rewind a bit, because I remember I was in like Mount Shasta, or I was heading that way, and that mountain was very beautiful. And something in my heart told me to pull over by the city, but for some odd reason, my body just continued moving that direction. And I kind of wish I would have stopped by Shasta City to see what my heart was telling me. Maybe one day, huh? And then when I was continuing my journey, you know, it went from these, you know, hilly, dry environments to more, you know, vibrant, luscious forests that I remember back at home. You know, more greenery than yellow, than gold. And like I said, North California is very beautiful with like the luscious green hilltops and the sapphire blue lakes. Really wish I had the ability to record, but I was saving my juice for emergencies. I remember I took a picture of myself on one of the last rest areas in Northern California with Mount Shasta. Then I continued my journey till I reached to the border of Oregon, which again, another beautiful state. Just as beautiful as California. And to me, it was more vibrant green and many trees covering every inch of rock in the mountains. I finally found a place to park. It was 5:55 when I did. And they had a plug outlet for where I can charge my phone and watch some One Piece. And so the biggest takeaway I would say on this journey was to follow your intuition, follow that inner guidance. Because you never know where it's going to lead you. It could lead to some perfect opportunities right around the corner. I mean, you never know unless you try. I really wish I would have stopped by Mount Shasta City because it felt really good. But I was still in that like fear state of mind to keep on going. Of course, life is always going to have my back no matter where I go. As long as I do my breath work and meditation. Also, having a sense of integrity too. I know there was one part of that journey, I wouldn't say I had integrity for the most part, but I was trying to find somewhere to rest my head, you know. I mean, it's better than me continue driving and then drive off the road because I didn't have any rest. And it wasn't like I was trying to steal anything. Just like I didn't steal the money, but somehow those guys were kind enough to give it to me. So you never know what integrity is going to do for you. I mean, it's going to show no matter how hard someone tries to hide what they're doing. You know, it's always going to show itself. You know, your actions create muscle memory of some sort, and it's going to react a certain way depending on the situation you're in. Just, like I said, just trust your intuition, and if you practice integrity, life's going to give you what you really desire, not what you want. Thank you guys for watching. Love you guys. See you in the next one. Bye for now.